Many of us underestimate the power of learning how to switch push efficiently. So today we're going to talk about how you can do so in a way where the more you get comfortable in a switch push, the more you're going to get comfortable in a switch ollie, switch flip, and whatever switch trick you really want to learn. Starting off with making sure you're centered over the lead foot when you're pushing is super important. When I'm on my board, if I were to be taking this foot out, this left one, am I able to stand on one leg? That's what I'm thinking. Am I centered over that lead foot? If I need my foot on the ground so that I can keep myself over the board, then I'm not stabilizing over that lead foot. If this feels difficult, you might want to think about including that engagement of your hips, slight bend at the knee, so that you're able to feel more stable. Once that feels comfortable, you want to progress it to a slow push. This can be super humiliating and also hurt the ego a bit, but it's important you don't rush this and you're really making sure you're centered over that foot so that when you go for the push, you aren't going from one leg to the one on the board. Instead, even as you put the foot that's gonna push down on the ground, you're still centered over this foot. So you can see from there, I'm straight over the foot. What we don't want is to push, go to the left, and then go to the right. Or if you're goofy, you don't want to go to the right, go to the left, go to the right, go to the left. That's a lot of movement and it makes things super inefficient. So therefore, as this skill, as you build this, when you're trying to stabilize over that lead foot in a switch stance, things are gonna be so much more inefficient. They're gonna be so much more unstable and the control is gonna take a big toll. Right now I said, if you skate regular and you skate goofy kind of thing, I'm just talking about push and switch in whatever your switch is, right? So if you're goofy and your left foot is generally forward, then your switch stance is where your right foot is the one on the board. If you're regular, where your left foot is forward, then your switch stance is where your right foot is the one on the board. So reviewing real quick, you want to make sure that you can stand on the board if you were just on one leg. If this is difficult and you're straightened out, then you hinge at the hips, slightly bend at the knees. As you go about pushing, you want to make sure you're going slow before you go fast so that you're careful not to develop this habit of going back and forth from the ground to the board. Because then when you translate or try to adapt this skill of stability, when you do a switch kickflip, switch ollie, switch trick in general, things are going to be so much more difficult and you're not going to know how to stabilize yourself when you're in a switch stance. So after you develop the pushing and you're going fairly in a vertical direction and there's not so much movement, you want to start to play around with having your foot position, your front foot position in a different part of the board, right? So I can have it more towards the toe side of my switch foot, and when I push, I'm gonna notice that I'm turning in towards the toe side. I want to play around with having my lead foot over the right, and as I go forward, I'm leaning to my heel side, right? Heel side from the switch foot, heel side from the switch foot. This is because we're gonna learn how much pressure we need to apply as we're pushing. So when we're in the center, generally the pressure is still light, but it's important that it's also light when your foot is here and your foot is there, because if we put all our pressure, we can do that, or we can get a wheel bite if we skate loose trucks. So to avoid that, we want to be able to control the amount of pressure we're placing on that lead foot. Now, once you feel comfortable using that pressure on either side of the board, you want to incorporate that back foot when you place it on the board. So we're pushing, the back foot comes on, and we apply pressure on the toe side or the heel side, right? So check out the back foot, toe side, turning me towards the toe side. I'm gonna take another push, heel side, right? And this is not necessarily because you're going to be putting that back foot on the heel side or toe side, depending on where you want to go. Usually that's decided by the opening up of your shoulders and whatnot, but this is going to give you a lot more board control and control in general, so you have that variability and can choose the direction you want to go depending on what you're skating, right? Whether you're pushing on a path or you're skating through the park, through a street spot, regardless, you want that control to be built. Once you feel comfortable going towards the right, left, straight, you know, you can start to make sharper turns where you push and then you can go to the right, or you push and then you can go to the left, and you aren't afraid of taking those sharp turns or those wide turns. This isn't necessarily considered a push, but it is developed so much more effectively if you get a comfortable push, because like I mentioned earlier, the more centered you are over that lead foot, the more you understand how to be centered when you're doing the turn, right? If you're waddling from one side to the other, then you're gonna build this habit where when you try to turn sharp, this might happen. Whoa, there you go out, and you're not really sure where you need to go or where you need to be. So always understand you need to develop that ability to stabilize yourself over that lead foot. So center yourself over that lead foot is something I always say throughout these videos, and if you follow me on Instagram, that's where you'll hear it a lot. Once you apply these concepts pretty effectively, you then challenge the speed. So you practice going fast, doing stronger pushes. You practice pushing as you're still centered over that lead foot, and you practice turning with speed added, right? Doesn't necessarily need to go from, you know, vertical to a straight right or straight left, but you slowly make your way up there. And just because I'm introducing this as a linear approach, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't kind of, you know, go back and forth with these things. Like you can kind of push yourself fast if you're first learning and you have some confidence and you earn some confidence, but just consider that there's always room to improve upon that foundation, and that foundation comes from something as simple as being centered over that lead foot. Okay, so it's important to don't limit yourself and try to learn things linearly, but use your environment to play around with these concepts. So for instance, I have this path here. I can play around with, oh, let's see if I can go into this path in a switch stance. Let's see if I can go in towards the heels, towards the toe side, and then out towards the heel side. So use your environment, you know, use what you have, and make sure you aren't limiting yourself when it comes to progressing and when it comes to making sure you're applying these skills. So as you apply these concepts and consider the environment, the context, it's important not to limit yourself, but explore what it means to apply them. It's important that you don't limit yourself and you consider the environment or the circumstance, the context you're in, so you're able to progress in a way that suits you. If you're someone who's avoiding pushing switch, I hope this video kind of pushed you through that line and has you humbling yourself a bit, learning switch, because at the end of the day, it's gonna translate to the switch tricks you might want to learn or are learning at the moment. I just went on live for members only, so if you're interested in lives where we're able to go into detail, dive into these concepts in a bit more of a technical approach, and ask questions that can take up an hour, you might be interested in the memberships. There's 3 different tiers. Each of them come with their own benefits, but I'll let you choose. And for those of you who have been on lives for the public, I appreciate your comments, your input. There's coaching and lessons I offer. There's calls I've been on with many of you already, and there's lessons I've had with, actually I still haven't gotten a lesson from YouTube. I think I've only had calls from you guys. So if you live in the LA area or in the IE, OC, SD, or Long Beach, I go a lot to Long Beach, and you want a lesson or are interested in one, then you can hit me up on Instagram at profe.carlos at profe.carloss. Send me a message through YouTube and we can talk about what they may look like, whether it's a lesson one-on-one in person or a one-on-one through a call, or I should say FaceTime. I hope to see you guys in the next videos. Leave your questions and comments down below, and I'll see you soon, whether it's in person, through a call, in the lives, or on the memberships. Peace out.